just like a shadow clone exploding into a puff of smoke, the Naruto manga series is over. It's been over now for about 2 weeks, and I finally had enough time to sort of process how I feel about it, and I think I can finally assess how I feel about the entire Naruto manga overall, and I love it. I think it was one of the most, classic shonen battle manga that I think I've ever seen in a long time, and yet it's so different when compared to, the classics like Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and even Yu Yu Hakusho. It's just, Naruto has its own flavor, and it's not a perfect manga series by any stretch of the means. It's definitely got some bumps in the road. There's a lot of things which could have been omitted, and the final arc did drag on quite a bit. But overall, I'm completely satisfied with the series because for the most part, it was basically an underdog story, and it had the typical ending where, he starts out in the slums and he works his way up to the top. He's freaking Rocky Balboa, and by the end, he's Hokage. It's kind of predictable in that sense, but the journey there is really what it's all about. And, it's what I think I loved most about Naruto is kind of it was a never-ending training arc. There's a lot of times in series where they get their powers and then they just stick with them for the duration, and that's it. And you always just see that. But in every single arc of the series, Naruto is learning, he's growing, he's learning to be more competent, he's getting more mature as the series goes on, and he's always got something up his sleeve. He's so hard to predict. And that's what I think I loved most about the series. And before I get any more further into that, let me just talk a little bit about my history of Naruto, how I got into the series overall. My first experience with the series was back in the early 2000s when I was seeing manga scans of it, which weren't even translated of it yet. I mean, it was just pure pictures, so I was just going by what I was looking at, and it was still very early on, and I sort of dropped off real early in the series, and then eventually the anime started up, and we started watching those in our anime club in my high school, which none of them really liked because our anime club was really snooty. They were always into, really, super artsy, hardcore anime series. One of them we watched was called Razafon, which personally I think was just an Evangelion ripoff. But I'm sure I just pissed off a lot of people by saying that. But let's get back to Naruto. Naruto's what's important here. So I really got into the anime series in about 2004, and in 2005, that's when I just started full marathon mode and just getting absorbed in. And I think it was the Chuunin exam that really made me love the series. But at first, I actually didn't like Naruto at all. The first episode in particular, while classic, and it does sort of set up the main characters, I thought was just a little too goofy, but only because at the very end of the episode, when Naruto is about to beat the crap out of Mizuki, they use these old school Looney Tunes sound effects, and it just sort of took me out of the moment, because everything right before that was just so badass and awesome, and then it just got sort of brought down by there. But this was also a point in time when I didn't even like One Piece, because I thought the art style was way too cartoony, and now I just love the weirdness. I appreciate anything that's weird in anime now. And I can probably thank One Piece for that, but Naruto also helped sort of wean me in as well. And from that point on, I was just kind of well, okay, I'll give it a few more episodes, see what happens. They introduced Sakura and Sasuke. I knew Sasuke was going to be awesome. But the thing is, the first couple episodes were just all goofy stuff. It was all Naruto trying to trick Sasuke, and then him having bad stomach cramps and having diarrhea problems. And I was like, wow, this is... I like it. It's very similar to the early episodes of Dragon Ball, so it'll probably evolve as the series goes on, and it did, because once they introduced Kakashi into the series, I was just sucked in at that moment. Kakashi, to me, he's just the most ninja-y ninja of Naruto. I just love him so much. Just how mysterious and cool he is when they introduced him for the first time, and the hinting that he had some sort of mysterious eye, which they didn't reveal until later on, just... oh, it was so epic when he showed his Sharingan for the first time. And that brings us to the arc that really got me into the series, and that was the Land of the Waves arc, where they introduced Zabuza. And Zabuza was a great first villain because he wasn't too overpowered, but he was still, famous enough to be a part of, an organization like the Seven Ninja Swordsmen. So you knew not to mess with this guy at all, He was definitely a really high-level ninja, and he was, the perfect opponent. And he was also joined by Haku, and their whole story was sort of your first introduction to what, the main theme of Naruto is going to be about. And I think one of the main things is loneliness, especially because you see that mostly from Naruto and Sasuke. You know, how Naruto is, of course, an orphan. Sasuke loses his parents. You look at Haku, is completely abandoned. Zabuza, who basically just kills everyone around him. And then when he finally gets Haku, Haku and him die. It's so freaking depressing, but it's badass at the same time, because then Naruto goes crazy and transforms and beats the crap out of Haku. That first arc is so awesome, because it really shows you how dangerous the world of Naruto is going to be. They're not going to cut any corners. There's going to be, like, blood. There's going to be limbs lost. People will die. And it really set the tone for the rest of the series. And then Chuunin exam happens, and it's just so many characters all at once. You can't even take it. When they introduce Gaara for the first time, you can't even imagine, like, why this... Oh my god. I'm just getting flashbacks to watching this arc for the first time. I was watching it with friends, so we were sort of marathoning the whole show. And when they introduced Kankuro for the first time, and Temari and Gaara, that scene where he was throwing the rock, and then Sasuke caught it, just... the amount of epicness there. And then Rock Lee came in and beat the crap out of Sasuke, and then just more characters. Forest of Death, Orochimaru. Orochimaru is one of the greatest villains of the entire series. To me, he's like the Frieza of Naruto, in that he might not be like the most powerful, especially towards the end of the series. He's just so underhandedly villainous, and that's just what makes him so amazing to watch and to read. And he's just always constantly licking his lips, and he's so creepy and amazing. And then you have Kabuto, who's just... Kabuto's just a great bullshit artist, you know? He's constantly on different sides throughout the entire series, and they kept him at a minimum in the first half, and I'm really glad they did that, because they just went nuts with him in the second half. You know, he was kind of responsible for raising the dead in the war. That's kind of a big deal. But also, the Chuunin exam was important because we finally started to see the rift between Naruto and Sasuke, and this is clearly what was going to define the rest of the series. And it still blows my mind that Kishimoto didn't even plan for that to happen. He never intended for Sasuke to even be an important part. And there it is! It's happening! But it all ended in just this massive war in Konoha. Jiraiya gets introduced. Gaara versus Naruto. You get that great scene where the Shukaku comes out and fights against Gamabunta. And my god, guys, I was in a room with like 6 people watching this episode when suddenly Naruto and Gamabunta transformed into Kurama. Everybody jumped up. It was awesome. And yes, we were drinking, so of course it was very raucous and awesome. But still, just, that really takes me back to the old days. And then Tsunade gets introduced, and then that Sasuke retrieval arc, which featured a lot of the underused main side characters, which I think is awesome. And I'll get to all the characters later. I'm just sort of trying to run through all of the arcs. And that is what it all led to that Naruto versus Sasuke fight, which in the manga version looks great. Anime version, freaking sex. Sex on film. This stuff is anime porn. The first time I saw this, I couldn't take it. It was amazing. It was clearly better than all of the other episodes. That's not to say there wasn't other ones that were awesome. Gaara versus Rock Lee, that was the freaking shit. But this fight right here was just so brutal and well done, and it really set the tone for the rest of the series. And in a way, it kind of unfairly set the bar, because the beginning of Shippuden was really slow. I mean, really slow. The first 2 arcs, they just stretched the hell out of those. But there was some really good payoff. This was basically one of the defining moments for Sakura, if not the defining moment, just to show how far she's come as a ninja and what she's learned from Tsunade. And then right after that, you have the Sai arc where he comes in and he's introduced. And I'm still not even sure how I feel about Sai at this point. To me, he's still just a really just one-note character. Like, he has his one character trait, which is he doesn't have a character trait and he's trying to find one. And I just never really found the humor in it that much. Although I will say he is definitely awesome. I love his powers. I think they're really unique. And I wish we could have seen a little bit more from him in the final arc of the series. But I'm completely satisfied with both him and Ino having a weird-looking child. Otherwise, right after that, you had the Hidan Kakuzu arc, which didn't like it in the manga. Not gonna lie. I don't know what it was. I just couldn't get into it in the manga version. Anime version, though, God, I loved it so much. It might be in my top 5 favorite arcs just in the anime version. And a lot of it has to do with just the atmosphere and the voice acting. In particular, Hidan's voice actor. Just The episode where he, spoiler alert, I can't believe I'm saying this, where he kills Asuma, just, that voice actor is having an orgasm while he's reading those lines. And it's so sick and disgusting, but it sort of sucks you into the episode and it just, like, amplifies the terror. And, I don't know, that episode just really made him awesome. And Kakuzu, oh my god, Kakuzu is so amazing. And I think the reason I like him a lot, just like Kakashi, is because they're sort of like the stereotypical view of what a ninja looks like. I just think they always look badass when they're wearing the mask. And just his overall look and powers are just so intimidating. He's just standing around the whole time, and you're just waiting for him to do something. And when he finally gets in there, he freaking just brings the pain. And of course, he also allows Naruto to use his Rasen Shuriken for the first time, so he's great bait for that technique. And of course, my boy Kakashi got to fight against him and finish him off. And Shikamaru and Hidan, that whole arc was just so intense in the anime version. I wish they didn't make some of the unnecessary changes, like, I know it's stupid and it's superficial, but like when Shikamaru picks up Asuma's cigarette and smokes it, they took that out of the anime version, and in the manga version, I believe he actually lights up the cigarette and then throws it at the bombs to actually kill Hidan, whereas in the anime version, he just throws the lighter. Which, that's stupid. He needs to hold on to that lighter. That's awesome. Or at least return it to Asuma's grave, but whatever. Still, it was still a cool scene. It was still incredibly effective. And that one anime episode, which was Kakashi and Ino Shikacho fighting against Hidan and Kakuzu, top 5 anime fights for me. That's still one of the best episodes of the entire series as far as I'm concerned. But who knows? The anime version is still going on for a long time, so a lot more could happen from there. So, right after that, I'm trying to remember what after that, I believe it's the Sasuke Deidara stuff, which is just, in the anime version, again, that's just pure anime sex, it's just amazing. I think that was Hiroyuki Yamashita, I might be wrong, but gosh, that's just such an amazing episode. And it sucks that Deidara got snubbed out, but at least he got revived as a zombie later on. Right after that was the introduction of Pain and Nagato and Konan, and of course the Jiraiya battle, which is amazing, and it also is the death of Jiraiya, which I still feel is the best handled death in the entire series, and I'm really glad that he was not revived at all. That would have sucked if he came back as a zombie, because it would have been so stereotypical. They would have gone through the whole thing where Naruto couldn't fight him, but then eventually he has to. I'm glad they avoided that entire cliche altogether, because his death was so incredibly poetic and awesome, and it was sad too, because, you know, a lot of people were probably expecting that there was going to be a relationship eventually between him and Tsunade, but it's not going to happen. Not everything has a fairy tale ending, and that was just another one of those moments that made you realize that, oh yeah, anybody can die in this series at pretty much any time. And I just realized I skipped all the stuff with Sasuke actually escaping and all that stuff. That's tied into the whole Deidara thing. Right after that, there's the whole Pain attacking the village arc, which is great. It almost feels like it could be the final arc of the series. That's what it felt like when I was reading it for the first time, as well as when I was watching it in the anime version, which I think was handled well, although I do know that the battle between Naruto and Pain in the anime version is incredibly controversial. I still think it's freaking incredible and one of the most, like, monstrous battles of the entire series, and again, it's probably in my top 5 as well. I honestly don't think, you know, there have been some episodes that have really, like, been better than that. I mean, if you've seen my reviews of the anime, you know what my favorite episode is. It was actually a recent one, and just, God, I still think that's awesome. And we're getting there, because right after that is the Kage Summit arc, which introduces all the other Kages of the village, which is great because it opens up and expands the world of Naruto. And I love all these guys because of just how they work off of each other. And that arc where Sasuke busts in, you really get to see him at his darkest, I think, at this point in the series. Just, he is so desperate at this point, and doing everything in his power to avoid Naruto, because Naruto is such a huge influence on him and will cause him to lose his darkness, so to speak. But all of the confrontations he had there with Gaara, when he got into the Kage room with Zetsu, that was just so incredibly awesome. And just, it still blows my mind that Raikage decided to just get rid of his arm just so that he could keep attacking Sasuke. That was so freaking hardcore. Inoki is awesome because he's just sort of like your stereotypical, like, old man, and that's like just the whole joke with him. He can't even stand up without his, like, hip breaking. Then you have Mei, who's, you know, Mei is my least favorite of any Kage, and that's only because she's just the stereotype, I'm the strong woman type character, I don't need no man. And, you know, I still think she's cool with her whole, like, lava gimmick and everything, but she never really did anything for me, especially in the final arc of the series, where she doesn't really do anything. And, of course, there's Gaara, who's just always awesome. It's Gaara, you know, who probably went through the most transformations in terms of characterization in the entire series. Just, you know, starting out like a little freaking psychopath and then becoming the Kage of his own village. I mean, were there nobody, like, appealing Gaara becoming Kage? Like, this guy killed my son on the swing set a couple years ago, and you guys want him to be the leader of the village? I know that's a little too bleak and disturbing, but that's just the way it is. But yeah, all the Kages, they're great. All their bodyguards are really good, too. And basically, it was introducing them so that we could see them in the war. And the war is just huge. There's just so much going on. Zombies coming back from the dead. Zombies that have the power of Kurama the Nine-Tailed Fox. Freaking all the Ninja Seven Swordsmen, they're all there. Madara coming back from the dead. This huge revelation that he planned all this to happen. The Ten Tails revival. Kaguya coming back. Freaking Naruto versus Sasuke. It was a long arc. It went on for a couple of years, and it is so in the anime version as well. I think it has a lot of strong moments. It just sort of loses itself towards the end, especially with the whole Obito thing. Especially when, like, Kaguya is the thing, I think, that is going to be the most controversial aspect of Naruto. And I think it's honestly what I don't like about the final arc. I mean, I think she's cool. I like her powers. I like the fact that she's basically just a god. And, you know, she walks all over Naruto and Sasuke. Like, they can't do anything. They can't even really defeat her. They have to seal her away. And she just didn't do anything, though. She didn't talk much. She had almost no personality. I mean, anytime she evoked, it was either just being really angry or crying when she saw Naruto and Sasuke because she was reminded of her sons. And I just wanted more backstory for her character. And there is the possibility I'm going to get it in the new movie that's coming out, The Last. I think there's a lot of potential there for expanding on her backstory because the main villain is actually related to that bloodline. Are they going to do it? I don't know. It's probably going to be a Naruto Hinata love story with a little bit of action thrown in, which probably won't be bad. The movie looks great. I can't wait to see it. It's going to suck that we're probably not going to be able to see it for about a year, but that's beside the point. So that's it. It's all good. It gets a little sloppy towards the end, but for the most part, it does have a satisfying ending, especially with the whole time skip, introducing all the different kids and children of Konoha. Bolt or Boruto Uzumaki, you know, he's just basically little Naruto. He's even doing the same stuff as him, painting on the Kages. The one character I think who's the most interesting, actually, is Sarada Uchiha, and that's just because she doesn't even look like Sasuke or Sakura at all. It looks like Karen. And I want to learn a little bit more about Sasuke, like the weird journey he's going on, like when he was creeping through the woods at the end and he heard something. What if that was Orochimaru? Although, Orochimaru's not going to be able to do anything. But still, there it is. I really love the entire series, but let's talk about some of the characters themselves. Let's just go ahead and start with the main characters, Naruto. I love Naruto. He's just a big, dumb, lovable idiot, and he's the underdog character. I've always loved those type of characters. I'm a sucker for them, especially in the first half of the series, because everybody straight up hated Naruto, and he's one of the characters who sort of exemplifies the whole loneliness and degradation aspect of the series, which a lot of other characters share, like Gaara. And despite that, he still constantly moves forward. Nothing ever breaks his composure, and he just sort of like preserves the strength of his friends, and that's sort of what like gives him his strength. And of course, his fighting style is just really unpredictable, and it's funny too. He's one of the few characters who can be badass and funny at the same time, and it's very similar to like Goku from Dragon Ball Z or Luffy from One Piece. But he can also have his moments where he'll just snap. But he's so scarily determined that, like, I don't know, I just think he's a really inspirational character for a lot of people. You know, he's the type of character who basically overcomes anything and will do whatever it takes to help his friends and be recognized by his friends, because that's what matters to him most. And like I said, I love his fighting style. And of course, he's tied to Kurama, who didn't have much of a character in the first half of the series, but in the later halves, when he finally starts to team up with Naruto, his real personality comes out, and he's still mostly the same. He's just mostly kind of a lovable dickhead. And I still love he takes no crap from Naruto whatsoever. He's still basically the man in charge when it comes to using their power. And then that, of course, brings us to Sakura. I'm not going to talk about Sasuke yet. Sakura is okay in my book. The only reason I say that is just because we didn't get to see much of, like, the real romantic development between her and Sasuke, which is ultimately what's really important about her character. It's sort of what's led up to that moment, because she's been so obsessed with Sasuke. But still, I love the fact that she was one of the few female characters in the beginning who decided to go, like, her own route and train under Tsunade and do her own thing, which Ino promptly decided that, hell, I'm going to do that too, which, you know, Ino is a really great rival for her. That brings us to Sasuke, who... Sasuke, to me, is a emotional roller coaster of a character. I love him, I hate him, I hate his guts, I think he's the coolest character ever. He just has his moments, and I think the best moments with Sasuke, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, is when he doesn't say anything, and he just does things. And that's just because I think that's his strongest character trait, that he doesn't really let anybody tell him what to do. He just sort of goes forth and does his own thing, and he's just so menacing, especially in the second half of the series, especially during the Kage summit. But at first, I really liked the rivalry between him and Naruto, because it did remind me a lot of Goku and Vegeta, although it certainly went to dark places just like them when they had their whole, like, Majin fight. But, you know, they didn't blow each other's arms off, okay? That's what happened at the end of this arc, which just... that still surprises me, and, you know, it's not too surprising either that, you know, Sasuke sort of did see eye to eye with Naruto. It's just, he didn't want to go along with him because he felt that it would drag him down, that it would make him weak, and he wouldn't be able to accomplish anything. And, I don't know, he spills all his guts, like, in the last couple chapters, and it just sort of blows your mind, and you're just like, oh... damn, he was just really hardcore. He was just really putting up some massive-ass ninja walls. And, you know, I still think he's a really great character, and I still think there's more potential for the character, especially now that he's been rectified and that he actually has a relationship with Sakura. And as ridiculous as this is, I want to see Sasuke as a father. Same thing for Naruto. I want to see him interacting with his family, just because the prospect of it is just absolutely hilarious, just seeing him as a dad. And then, of course, we have Kakashi, the team leader. You guys know I love this guy. He's just so cool and competent, and yet at the same time, he's one of the most sad, lonely, and depressed characters of the entire series. And he's sort of constantly beating himself up all over the events of Obito and Rin. And it isn't until the very end of the series where everything is finally revealed to him. And just, he's a character who really evolves as the series goes on. And he has this presence that's constantly there, which goes perfect with his entire ninja nature. Just, he's always in the background, he's always watching, he's always, like, has an important thing going on in every arc. And he's really influential to both Naruto and Sasuke. He's sort of responsible for helping them complete their signature techniques. And another thing that I really love about Kakashi is just, you know, you never know what he's going to do. He has so many different techniques, and a lot of people say he uses the same techniques over and over. He does not. He uses hundreds of techniques as the series goes on, of different elements and different types, and even by the end of the series, when he used that Susanoo for the first time, I flipped my shit. I loved that moment. I really hope they do it justice in the anime version, because it really caught me by surprise. I didn't even think it was possible, but of course, Obito had his special powers and all that jazz. And Obito, let's go ahead and talk about him. Obito is a really good villain, but I understand why a lot of people don't like him, and that's because he is very preachy, especially in the final arc of the series. He just constantly, his whole talk about pain and erasing it and making his whole new world that he's going to take over, it can get really old. And when he finally became a god, I liked it because he shut his trap and he was just being a badass. But my favorite thing about Obito is when he actually was his Toby form, like when he was first introduced, just because you really couldn't get a read on the character. I mean, the first instance you see him, you know, you see the eye hole, you see the mask, you're like, oh, he's going to have some sort of special eye. He has to. And it's probably going to be Sharingan, making him another living member of the Uchiha clan. And lo and behold, it was Obito. And of course, the hair mixed, and, you know, there was tons of evidence for it. But I loved how his character went through this just, like, disgustingly massive change. It really shows how someone can be corrupted, especially when someone uses their weakness against them. He really is the evil version of Naruto, and by the end of the series, he is sort of rectified for what he does, but just when you see just the destruction and manipulation that he caused, it's insane. And yes, he was influenced by Kaguya and Black Zetsu and all that stuff, but still, he was still doing those things, he was still doing all that. And just the battles he has in the series were great, because at first he almost seemed invincible, and little by little they were revealing how his abilities worked, and people were starting to take his arms off, and then when he finally fought with Konan, you're like, oh, somebody can take this guy out if they really have a good plan. And even still at that moment, I had no idea it was Obito, and that's only because I just couldn't get over the fact that he survived having that massive rock on top of him. If anything, he should have been dead instantly, but it didn't happen. You know, Ninja World, superpowers, you know, you just got to be able to accept it. And just the fact that he was ended up getting saved by Obito. And, you know, I still think that he's not the best villain of the show, but I still think he's in the top 5 at least. At least to me, anyway. I'm definitely going to do, like, a top 10 villains list. Just stay tuned for that. So let's just roll through the teams real quick here. Ino Shikacho. These guys are great. I hated them at first. I actually thought they were just going to be joke characters. They weren't going to amount to anything. They end up being one of the most crucial and important teams of the entire series. Ino is probably my least favorite member, and that's only because she did get the least amount of development. She did have an amazing fight with Sakura, and she was immensely helpful in the war, especially when she was able to communicate with everybody. But then, of course, there's Choji, who's just, you gotta love Choji. He's just so jolly and awesome, and just, he rolls up into a giant meatball and runs over people. It's just so awesome. He's so funny. And, you know, he has so many great moments, especially during the Sasuke retrieval arc when he was eating the pills and fighting against Jirobu. And then, of course, in the war when he slimmed down and then became a massive giant with a big butterfly wings, having a Godzilla battle with Geto Mazo. That was just incredible. But the standout, of course, is Shikamaru, who is just, you know, in many ways, he should have been Hokage, but that's just because, you know, of how smart he is. But, you know, Naruto is like the brawn, but it's good that Shikamaru at the end of the series is sort of like his advisor and aiding him, and that's just a perfect combination. And like I said, I hated their team at first. In particular, I really hated Shikamaru. I just hated his shitty attitude. And I never imagined, you know, I was so shocked. He was the first one to become a Chuunin. And that's what was so great about that Chuunin exam, because it sort of lets you know that, hey, don't judge a book by its cover. These characters have got the skills to pay the bills. Whether it was his battle with Tamari, or later on when he was going up against the flute girl, Tayuya, during the Sasuke retrieval arc. Just, it really proves how competent he is, and like I said, I think he really could be the next Kage, but it's probably going to be Konohamaru. Other teams, we have Shino, Kiba, and Hinata, and I think they're easily one of the most underdeveloped of the teams, but that's only because characters like Shino, you know, he barely does anything throughout the whole series. He does have a few standout moments, and in all the expanded material, like the movies and stuff, he does do cool things, and even in the filler episodes. But I think he was just a really missed opportunity, especially that one episode I remember just being really angry about when they ran into Toby, and Shino was getting ready to go up against him, and even Toby was like, oh crap, an Aburami member, and I was like, oh, this is going to be so incredible, we're finally going to get to see Shino do something, and Toby just disappears, end of story. Even in the war, he does have a few cool moments, but I think most of them that I really liked actually came from the filler episodes. One where he was fighting, I forgot his name. It was the other Aburami clan member who had the poisonous bugs he could cover all over his body. But that episode was just really, really clever, and I want more from Shino. He's just so creepy, and maybe that's why they don't use him that much. Kiba, I think, is one of the most underrated characters of the entire series. I love me some Kiba. Kiba is, I think he kind of had the potential to be his own main character just because of how cocky he is. I just think he's really funny. And his first battle with Naruto was really shocking because he lost because Naruto farted in his face. Just seeing that the first time, just like, wow. It let you realize that Naruto, every single time he's going to win, it's going to be some sort of weird twist around it. And that's what really got me hooked into the show. But Kiba himself, just, I love his whole relationship with Akamaru, the whole dog thing. And I really like that they made Akamaru grow as the series went on. And it blows my mind that even after the time skip, he's still alive. He's just this old geriatric dog who can't even move. I just think that's really funny. But I love Kiba. I love his whole fighting style, and just, I think he's a really funny character. I just love his reactions to things. That's my favorite thing about him. Whenever something really weird goes down, he's the first one to react with his big bug eyes. It's just always really funny. And he tries to bring logic to situations that clearly have no logic at all. And then we have Hinata. Everybody loves Hinata, and I'm not gonna lie, I love Hinata too. I think she's a great character. She's kind of a stereotypical character, but that doesn't change the fact that I think she's awesome. I think her standout moment is during the Pain arc when she decided to go and attack Pain. That episode, amazing. Handled so well. One of the few episodes that really brought legitimate tears to my eyes when I saw it, especially that final shot when she's crawling towards Naruto and then is thrown into the sky and killed by Pain. Just, that whole scene was so intense, and then Naruto just exploded with anger. It was so freaking incredible. And then that brings us to the other team of Neji, Tenten, and Rock Lee. Tenten is awesome. Another really underused character just like Shino. And a character who was teased to do something really big in the final arc with the Sage of the Six Paths, Secret Weapons, and they never followed up on that. And that really bugs me. I mean, other than the fact that, you know, the Cloud Ninja were trapped inside the gourd, that's really all that came of that. And I was hoping that would be sort of like one of the ways they were going to defeat Madara or like Kage, and it would have given Tenten like this really awesome moment. Otherwise, I love Tenten's whole gimmick with the whole using different weapons and bringing out the scrolls, which summons thousands of them just flying all over the place. I think that's really awesome, and it left a great impression, especially in the anime version, because a lot of that stuff in the manga wasn't even there, and they expanded on it, and it looked really awesome. And Tenten's just a fan favorite. She's a great foil to Rock Lee as well, because just her reactions to him. And Rock Lee is fantastic. Rock Lee is so good, he got his own spin-off series, and that's just because he's just filled with youth. He's amazing, he's so funny, and his fighting style is great. He probably has one of the most entertaining fighting styles of the show because of how it's constantly evolving. His battle with Gaara is one of the standouts because you get to see how fast he is when he opens the gates for the first time, and they're like, how are we going to one-up that battle at all? Let's get him drunk. His battle against Kimimaro just still makes me laugh to this day. And just, it's so awesome. It's so badass and hard-hitting. And you're going to be rolling on your sides watching it because of how ridiculous it really is. And then Gaara comes in and just makes it all better, and that sort of patches up their entire relationship. And then that's sort of like, to me, that's it. That's like it for Rock Lee. There are moments in the second half of the series. Small moments, mind you, where Rock Lee does do some cool things like kicking through Madara. But other than that, they could have done so much more with this character. He should have been inserted into one of those major arcs and fight against someone. Just, please, give us more Rock Lee. I really felt they could have done more with him, and while I tolerate the spin-offs, I don't really care for them that much. And that brings us to Neji, and Neji, I think, is the most complex of those three characters for a lot of different reasons. His whole backstory with his family is very dark for Konoha, and, you know, obviously it's all changed by the end of the series. But when he's first introduced, he's a very tragic character, just like many of the others, and he's also trying to, like, fight destiny. That's, like, his whole thing, and, you know, he's trying to beat that into Naruto's head, like, both literally and figuratively, and it ultimately leads to his defeat and his change in character, but he still sort of keeps his cool cockiness, which, when I first saw him, I'm like, oh, he's basically just a carbon copy of Sasuke, but he's actually completely different from him in so many different ways, and he's the one member of this big group that gets killed, which is still surprising to me. I was almost fully convinced at first, oh, they're going to bring him back. You know, Rene Densei, bring the people back from the dead no jutsu ability, whatever it's called. I was pretty sure that Neji was going to come back into the fold. But it didn't happen. He's dead. Even by the end of the series, both Hinata and their daughter Himawari are standing at Neji's grave. And it's still a sad reminder, you know, and it's, I think, one of the most major character deaths of the show, and, you know, he died in Naruto's arms, so it was a really effective scene, both in the manga and in the anime version. Just really hardcore stuff. Other characters from Konoha that I think are really worth mentioning, I like Tsunade, but she's definitely not my favorite. Jiraiya, on the other hand, I think is fantastic. He's basically Masaroshi 2.0, and what I love about him, too, is just, like, the influence he's had on a lot of different characters in the series, being both the teacher of Minato, Minato taught Kakashi, Kakashi taught Naruto. Just, you know, he sort of set like the groundwork for the heroes of the series, and that's really what makes him important. Not only that, but he was also the teacher of Nagato as well. He was also just a really great ninja. His ability to infiltrate any country, especially considering how ridiculous he looks. How are you not going to notice the massive Kabuki man over there? It's just, he's so crazy and funny. And his fighting style is great because it's just a lot of different mixture of things. I like the whole Toad theme, and that goes with him going up against Orochimaru and Tsunade having the slug. It's a reference to a Japanese legend or folk tale, I believe. And what I also really like about Jiraiya, of course, I've already mentioned this, is he had the perfect death scene of the series when he went to Hidden Rain and fought against Nagato. It was really sad, and even when he was dying, he was still doing everything he could by putting the message on Fukasaku's back and getting him to go to Naruto. All of the Kages from Konoha are awesome in their own special way. The first Hokage, to me, is basically Goku. At least that's what he reminds me of. He's just so ridiculous and happy. And he's a really tragic character, too, because his whole life is all about trying to find peace for the village and doing everything to make it happen. And it still results in both him and his best friend having this, like, battle to the death, and there's nothing that he can do about it. And even with that, he still dies, and then he gets revived as a zombie and is forced to fight against one of his former students, dies again, then gets revived again in a massive war, and ends up being one of the influential people to end it. So in many ways, Hashirama's story does come full circle by the end, and he's not to be outdone by his brother Tobirama, who can really just be summed up in 2 words, which are badass. Simple as that. He comes across at first as really gruff and almost like a bad guy. Like, there's no way this guy could be in charge. He's basically a racist stick. But he's really not like that at all. And by the end of the series, you really get to see the merits of his character. And I love how he never really shows his goofy side whatsoever, even by the end of the series. There are a few moments where he has his smirks here and there, but for the most part, he's just really hardcore. The third Hokage is just, you know, he's one of those characters, he's like the classic martial arts master, and when he was first introduced in the show, my first thought was, I wonder how long until he's going to die. That's just the way I feel about those type of characters, and eventually it did happen, but his battle with Orochimaru was fantastic because he was just so awestruck and sad by having to fight against one of his former students. And that battle itself was just really intense and unique because that's when they finally started getting into the concept of, like, summons, when he summoned Enma, the Monkey King, and then, you know, just, it was just so clever. And that arc was great because it also introduced the Sound Four for the first time, and they didn't even show up for a long time after that, and that was really clever to introduce them right there. But the third Hokage is basically just like the grandfather of the group, you know, that's just how I always have viewed him. And then, of course, there's Minato Namikaze, who is just goofy as hell. His main joke by the end of the series is trying to come up with really complex names for techniques and jutsus, and that's always really fun. And his first interaction with Naruto is great because it wasn't what I expected. I love how Naruto just decks him in the face, and then they finally start to have their father-son moment, and that's understandable completely. And then, of course, there's Kushina, who just, you know, it's funny because Kushina never really had a chance to be a mother at all, and when she finally does get a chance to interact with Naruto, she's doing the job perfectly, and that whole episode, too, where she's going over the backstory, and where she meets Naruto for the first time, one of the best episodes of the entire series. Hands down, one of the best story moments as well. I might do that like in a top 10 sad moments of Naruto. There's a lot of top 10 Naruto videos coming, so stay tuned for those. And then, of course, Naruto becomes the Hokage, as does Kakashi, which is freaking awesome, and he totally deserves it because there's so many moments in the series where it almost seems like it's not going to happen, and then it does, and there it is. But the villains of the series are also great. I said that Orochimaru is definitely one of the best, but I really liked Zabuza at the beginning. But the Akatsuki really steal the show. They're just way too unique. Their whole, like, design is great. The whole black cloak with the red clouds. And they all just have some really nasty techniques, and they're always really disturbing. Deidara, who has the mouths on his hands, who can create clay bombs. Sasori, who literally makes human puppets out of people and is a puppet within a puppet. That's just so strange, and his battle with Sakura was so on point. I loved it. Kisame and Itachi are a great team because of how different they are from each other, and as much as I like Itachi, I do like Kisame just a little bit more, but that's just because I'm more into his type of just badass brawler character. But Itachi is easily one of the most, if not the most, influential character of the entire series, and that makes him incredibly important. And of course, he has a number of standout scenes throughout the episode. He's one of the most intimidating characters, especially before the reveal that he actually is sort of like a triple agent of sorts. And that's what I think was really like the big change for the character, because before I really didn't like Itachi at all. I was all for Sasuke getting his revenge, and then finally when he dies and everything is revealed about him and he comes back as an Edo Tensei zombie, my entire like view of Itachi just like completely changed. And just to see how he influenced the rest of the war, and both Naruto and Sasuke, just, you cannot denounce how important the character of Itachi is. It's just, he's crazy. Kakuzu and Hidan, they're very simple, but they're very badass. They're easily just the brawler members of the group, and just the fact that they can work together in tandem because they're constantly blowing shit up and Hidan can't die just makes them a perfect team together. And their whole arc in the anime version was really important, especially when they killed Asuma, and Shikamaru was important. Naruto used his big ability for the first time. Just so incredible. Konan, Nagato, and of course that brings in the Pain Jutsu, which is Pain, and just these guys, I really wanted Pain to be the final villain of the show, and that's only because at first my first thought was, ugh, I really don't want another Uchiha to be like the big villain. I do not want them to be the final villain of the show. That is just such a bummer. But still, even still, I think that he did a really great job in his arc, and he was so intimidating, and I loved the whole reveal that it was actually basically just a dead body being controlled, and Nagato was in this weird mechanical Star Wars thing. I don't know. That's what it reminds me of. It's like a walker from Star Wars. And his battle with Naruto was just so intense, just their clashing ideals and just how similar they were, and just the fact that Naruto at first didn't even realize that he was fighting against his teacher's killer, and just, it's a huge character moment for the series. It's really when Naruto comes into his own and starts to become the true hero of the show and stops being like just the typical underdog. And it was like basically Goku going Super Saiyan moment. That's what it felt like to me, and it was also the introduction of Sage Mode, so I really dug all of that stuff. Konan herself is maybe my favorite female character of the show. Just, she is just so cool. Simple as that. Her battle with Toby was so sick, how she planned all that out. Just the whole, like, ocean made out of paper. And the damage she caused to him was just so crazy. And she's probably the most level-headed member of the entire Akatsuki organization. Especially when compared to, like, Hidan and Kakuzu. Like, she's really, like, the voice of reason a lot of the times. But at the same time, she's very timid. And she really isn't in control of a lot of things. But she's still, like, one of the higher-up members of Akatsuki, so she's still incredibly important, and she just also happens to be a very beautiful and badass ninja. So that's basically the Akatsuki, unless you want to, of course, talk about Zetsu, who's basically just a weird, creepy plant monster. I was sort of expecting a little bit more from him, and the black half ended up being basically the will of Kage, ended up being like Kage's evil will, and that, of course, brings us to Kage, and like I've said, I think she's okay. I think her powers are cool. I just want more backstory from the character. They gave us a little bit of stuff in the hieroglyphics and a few things, but I want more. I want to see Kage as a child, growing into a teenager, and why she decided to, like, start this war and eat the fruit. I want to see her consuming the fruit for the first time, using her powers for the first time. Just, there's so much they could have done with this character, and it would have probably been a better idea to maybe introduce the concept of Kage a little earlier in the series. Maybe not, like, outright saying that Kage is going to be the final villain of the show. Maybe just mentioning her in passing, you know, like the ancient Princess Kage. I don't know, just anything. Because, I don't know, it still was kind of shocking because, you know, the Sage of the Six Paths was the first character that was hinted to be like the originator of all ninja abilities and all that jazz. And then they introduced Kage, who actually came before, and it's just like, whoa, what else is going on here? There's just so much about the world of Naruto that we don't even know. And maybe that's what the whole part 3 of the series is going to be about. Maybe it's just going to be about this new areas we've seen, non-ninja villages, you know, seeing what else is out there. You know, we saw the land of samurai. Are there other lands of weird people? Even in the Naruto movies, there are like these knight characters in the second Naruto movie. There could be so many different civilizations out there. And, you know, even though Madara and all that stuff and the Ten Tails, Kage, all that stuff has been defeated, there's still going to be evil in the world. There's still going to be a need for ninja. And that's where I think part 3 of the Naruto series is going to come in. Or it's just going to be a straight-up comedy just about the goofiness of Bolt and Sarada, just seeing how their relationship is going to build. Because obviously they are going to be teammates. There's no way that's not going to happen. Or maybe there's going to be a twist that we don't even know about. Is an old villain going to return? Are new villains going to pop up? The possibilities for part 3 of Naruto are really just endless, and I can't wait to see what Kishimoto is going to do with that. And I hope if there's going to be an anime version or a movie version, they really just go crazy with it and have a lot of fun. So that's Naruto. It's a kick-ass action anime and manga series, and I really love it. It's got a few ups and downs, although it's mostly a lot of ups. The characters are fantastic. They're really easy to get attached to. They have great development as the series goes on, and they always get to do something awesome. The action in the series will not disappoint. It's incredibly creative, and almost every single action scene is completely different from the next, and usually has a few surprises in it. The anime and the manga version is definitely worth checking out, and the series covers a number of different themes. Life, death, prejudice. It's all over the place for this series. And what I think I love most about it is that even when it's done, you can still get something out of Naruto. You can get a good lesson, you can get a cool action series, or you can even get a little bit of comedy. Naruto has it all, and it's one of my absolute favorite manga series of all time. It's not perfect, but it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you're a big fan of the classics like Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, One Piece, Bleach. You know what I'm talking about, the Shonen Jump classics. So check out Naruto, it's really good, and it's still got a bright future with its brand new movie, its brand new Part 3 miniseries, so I'm excited for the future of everybody's favorite unpredictable, knuckle-headed #1 ninja, Naruto. So that's the end of my ridiculously long Naruto video. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And before you go, please tell me about your history with Naruto and what you hope to see from the Part 3 miniseries and even the brand new movie spin-offs. Remember guys, if you have not subscribed to our channel, you can do that by clicking on the channel icon right up here. You guys can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. To all the people who have been watching our Naruto videos and all of our Naruto manga reviews, thank you again. Super Kami Guru 9000. Out. If you stuck around this long, here's a little bonus for the end of the video. I'm going to talk about all of the Jinchuriki. So let's start with, of course, #1. That's Gaara. Yeah, Gaara's the One Tail. He's awesome. I've already mentioned that he's a brooding badass. Shukaku is awesome. I especially love what Shukaku's personality is so ridiculous with his loud yells and pounding his stomach to use his weird air blasting abilities. He's great. Two Tails. That's Yugito. That's the two-tailed cat. Is awesome. Very distinctive design. I like the blue fiery look. Very little is shown of it in the series aside from the battle with Hidan and then later on in the series when Naruto and Kurama are fighting against all of them. But still, just a really slick design. And Yugito herself is just so freaking awesome. I wish she'd have had her own separate arc. She's actually like maybe in my top 10 favorite female Naruto characters. Is that going to be a new list coming out? You'll have to stay tuned to the channel and find out. So, Three Tails. That is the big freaking turtle creature. Love this thing. It got its own arc in the anime series, and that kicks all sorts of ass, even though that arc was incredibly slow. But it was great to see it going all crazy and nuts, and it was awesome in the battle when it was rolling around like Anguirus from Godzilla. And it's also cool that its Jinchuriki just happened to be a Kage as well, a Mizu Kage. Yeah, pretty cool stuff there. The Four Tails. Yes, the Four Tails is Roshi. Roshi is awesome for a number of reasons. One, it's just a huge reference to not only Journey to the West, but Dragon Ball Z. Master Roshi, he has a giant ape. The ape breathes fire. It's a Dragon Ball reference, people. It's awesome. It's a giant monkey with four tails that spews lava balls. What's not to love? He's also one of the few of the Jinchuriki characters and Beasts, Son Goku, who actually gets to have like a full-on development conversation with Naruto. And that's pretty awesome. The Five Tails is the weird dolphin horse creature Han. And the creature is just strange looking. But it's so awesome. It's so fast and swift. And it's really fun to play as in the Naruto video games. The Six Tails Jinchuriki Utakata is cool because he uses bubbles that explode. Not only that, but I actually really like the big gooey slug. I just think it's really awesome. It reminds me of the Pokemon Goodra. The Seven Tails literally looks like a Godzilla monster. Simple as that. Just a big evil bug creature that could destroy a city. It's still really awesome looking though. It's easily the most unique looking out of all of the frickin' Bijou. And the Jinchuriki herself, she is awesome. But of course, they all get one-upped by Killer Bee, Bakayato Kanayoto. This guy is awesome. I love Killer Bee. He is one of my favorite characters of the entire series. His fighting style is incredibly unique. He ends up becoming the master of the Samehada, and both him and the Eight Tails are pretty freaking tight. And then, of course, there's Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki and Kurama, the Nine-Tailed Fox. The heroes of the series. You know how I feel about them. They're pretty cool guys. And you should check them out in both the Naruto manga and anime series. Check you later, guys.